Does anyone remember playing Space Cadet Pinball on Windows XP, or am I just getting old? I mean, I am 25, which is halfway to 50, and it's quite depressing to think about, but anyways. The good old days I spent in my grandparents' house, hearing that screeching dial-up waiting for the internet to kick over. AOL was the backbone to my grandmother's computer addiction, and everything just took so damn long to load. So in the meantime, Space Cadet it was. Pretty much locked and loaded into every PC in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was a good time waster. And even then I didn't give a about that game, which in today is quite ironic due to pinball and its entire hobby having the biggest death grip over my bank. It is ridiculous. I mean, the amount of money I've spent on hunks of wood, electric wiring, and kick-ass artwork is in the tens of thousands at this point. It's bad. But why pinball? Believe it or not, I thought pinball was stupid. It was just a giant piece of furniture that looked cool, but there was no goal and it wasn't fun. You just smack around a metal ball as long as you can and try not to let it drain. It wasn't until I met my current mentor, Paul, over at HP Amusements on a spontaneous purchase of mine that changed everything. You see, I ended up buying a 1980s Miss Pac-Man cabinet for the house. I've always loved arcade games from an early age, and those memories even stem back to the good old TV plug-and-play versions for the home, if any of you guys can remember those. I put quite some time into Dig Dug, that's for sure. But there was something about owning my own authentic cabinet for the very first time that just scratched this undesirable itch that I didn't even know I had. From here, I did what any logical person would do and hopped on Facebook Marketplace to go down the gigantic rabbit hole of purchasing more things that I just totally wouldn't end up regretting or making my girlfriend mad, of course. Now, you see, Paul comes into play as he was the only contact I had at the time who knew how to work on all these machines that I just kept acquiring. So every project I acquired that would stack into the garage was another phone call to Paul on how to fix the damn thing. And long story short, I eventually got to the point where Paul offered me a job to help him in the shop in his apprentice, and I would also learn repairs along the way. And to go full circle so I don't lose track, Paul was the one who introduced me to pinball. The same thing I mentioned earlier, and I can pretty much quote him today word for word with a stern look that he gave me going, "You were an absolute idiot for thinking pinball is stupid." And I think there's just this misconception with the general public that also may have my exact thoughts at the time too, that pinball is stupid.
What do you see when you look at a pinball machine?
I kind of see like a giant slot machine.
There's shiny things and bright lights.
Letters that don't mean anything, that aren't linked up to anything. It's just designed for beeps and boobs.
But what happens if you do this?
Ball 1 locked.
And what if you do it again?
Ball 2 locked.
And again?
Shall we run? Let's Batman.
This is how you're meant to play pinball. And while a casual player might see a bunch of blinking lights, a skilled pinball player sees a map.
My homework that night was to take Catrian, my girlfriend, out for dinner and to play some pinball at this local joint in my area called Blainebrook. And let's just say, there is nothing like the first time as I laid my eyes upon all of the machines and I was hooked. I mean, it's just not as simple as that. I still didn't know what the hell I was doing, but between seeing all of the beautiful machines organized in their lines with the beautiful artwork ready for me to play was just glorious on its own. And quarter after quarter, I played game after game, and it didn't make much sense to me at the time, but the goal is, I kept trying. I don't know if it was one of those things that just clicked as an adult, and maybe I didn't give pinball a chance as a kid due to its nature of being tough, unforgiving, or my favorite term, random. But one thing I can promise you, it's far from random. Spend some time learning a machine and I bet anyone can get hooked. If you go down the rabbit hole like I did, you'll find these tables have a lot more to offer than just shiny lights, cool artwork, and blaring sound effects. And something else that really blew my mind is that professional pinball players, or even the more advanced players, don't just smack the ball. Actually, Most of the game is about stopping the ball, believe it or not, what players refer to as gaining control. In pinball, there are many ways to gain control over the ball. Your first challenge is to resist that instinct to always flip when the ball gets anywhere close to the flippers. Instead, your focus should be on trying to control the ball, and one of the simplest, easiest ways to do that is called a dead flip. This term is used by letting the ball bounce off of a still flipper that carries the momentum out of the ball and over to the adjacent flipper to catch. Now it's under control. Holding the ball in a still position is also referred to as cradling. You do this by slowing the momentum of the ball down enough that you can hold the flipper up, leaving the ball cradled between the flipper and the inlane guide. This gives you a chance to breathe and think about your next shot. And in many cases, the ball may be cradled, but it's on the wrong side of the shot you're looking to take. You can actually pass the ball between the flippers using various techniques. One of the most simple moves is called a post pass or post transfer. This is accomplished by stopping the ball in a cradle, and with the very quick press of a button, the ball snaps up, hitting the post located right above the flipper, and transfers over to the adjacent flipper. Once you've mastered this skill, you can literally play catch back and forth with the ball to make any shot you need, and the rest is up to you to aim accordingly. If you miss a shot and the ball all of a sudden seems random, just let it come back down and gain control using some of the techniques mentioned. If you make your shots correctly, most of the games are set up to reward you, not punish you. The game only seems random when you miss your shots or you just flip away with no goal or no aim in mind. Just remember to take a breath, gain control, and make accurate shots. There's so much more to go over the rules and the gameplay and how to be a better player overall, but I can save that for a different video. I think you see my point on pinball not being random and the skill that's involved. So you might still be asking yourself, why does pinball matter? And that's a good question. I personally believe if you can get over the term random and realize that it's a game of skill, it genuinely opens a whole new world to learning. Besides pinball being a staple in American history, every game and every ball is a chance to learn and practice. Physics, geometry, game mechanics, you name it. Just like that video game boss that you've been stuck on and you have to try over and over and over until you beat it, that can translate into pinball as well. Nothing is ever gonna go right the first time. With some practice and learning the game's layout and shots, it can really change the game. From unlocking new features you've never seen, getting the high score and beating all of your friends, or even getting multi-ball for the first time. The community is great as well, and there are lots of people who are willing to help you learn, and there's tons of local areas for you to come out and play or even try a tournament. I've met a lot of great friends, contacts, and people along the way in my pinball journey that I would have never met if I haven't gotten into this hobby. And I also find learning the games and all the various tables to be very rewarding and addicting if I say so myself. I do understand the frustration of learning, and maybe it's not for everybody, but as I mentioned earlier, all I can ask is for you to try. Trying is the biggest aspect and it will pay off. Even research and learn some skills on how to control the ball, make shots better, aim versus just smacking it around, and you will quickly see pinball is worth the play, and hell, even worth the quarter. Grab some friends and play together too. And the funny thing is, pinball is kind of like life in many ways. It seems chaotic, random at times, you have no control over what's happening in certain aspects, and more importantly, you know it's going to end. And all you can do is your best to practice, gain control, and keep going. But thank God this is just a fun video about pinball before we get too dark and morbid. So next time you see a machine while you're out doing whatever you do, make sure you have some quarters in your pocket and give the game a try. I think you will be pleasantly surprised because pinball matters and it's not as random as it seems.